So what we want to do now is we want to play this audio for you guys. I want you guys to please listen to it in its entirety so you gain the full context of what we're going to talk about when we come back. So take a listen to them here.
We're going to discuss Caitlin Clark today. They were still talking about it on SportsCenter yesterday at like 5 o'clock. Granted, there's been another Fever game since this game happened.
It's unbelievable.
And they're still talking about just this foul getting upgraded to a flagrant one. And the only reason I wanted to bring it up is because yesterday Pat McAfee called Caitlin Clark a white on ESPN and then had to apologize for it. And Stephen A. Smith also embarrassed himself on First Take, arguing with Monica McNutt. So like two of ESPN's top talent just completely embarrassed themselves talking about women's sports, a league that they're partnered with at ESPN, and nothing's going to happen. Like they're both just going to like, it's fine, going to get away with it and nothing really matters. And I find that like mind-boggling.
Wasn't Stephen A. Smith kind of doing like stats, like we talk more about the WNBA than every other show? Like who cares? But you're not talking about it well.
Well, Stephen A. also then doubled down on his podcast, which he basically said, you only know who Monica McNutt is because of me, because I put her on First Take.
I handpicked the roster. I handpicked the roster, and you.
Wow. He made it a lot worse. McAfee tried to argue that he said it complimentary. It's a strange defense for himself. He tried to say well, I meant it as a compliment, and then like issued an apology, and then later on WWE Raw called a wrestler a white.
Jess,
son of a. Sorry.
Jess, it's funny because we've been discussing men's sports for 50 years now on the radio. 50 years, 40, 50 years, and we're still terrible at it. And so now we're discussing women's sports. And you expect, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying it's going to take a minute. We're not doing it well. And I'm confused. Have men never watched women's sports before? Because Caitlin Clark came in with all this fanfare, deserved, by the way. But LeBron went through this. Michael Jordan went through it. Caleb Williams is about to go through it. People are going to take their shots. They're going to say, hey, we're pretty good over here as well. It's not just about Caitlin Clark. And she's going through some of those rookie lumps that all the great players go through. Women are competitive. Is that surprising to men?
I guess so. I mean, I'm with you, guys. Like I played sports growing up and it was super physical. There would be fights sometimes. There would be like really intense competition, and that's part of any sport, and not just the WNBA, any sport. I'm sure when you coached your daughter's lacrosse team and are watching her play at Northwestern, lacrosse is one of the most physical sports there is. There's hard fouls all the time. It's just like very weird how this has become a conversation about like having to protect Caitlin Clark, who also dishes it out too. That's part of her game. That's a reason why people like her, is because she's so tough. She's a tough player in college, and she dish it out. And I'm not saying that Kennedy Carter should have done this. Obviously, I said yesterday it should have been called a flagrant on the spot, and I don't think this entire backlash happens if the refs just don't miss that call. But it's so weird how like mainstream sports has been covering this for like 3 days. And also when it goes to Stephen A. Smith, all he had to do was say like, you're right, like we'll do better. And I think that whole conversation like doesn't happen. Like it doesn't require a lot for men who have been covering sports for a long time that are now catching up to the popularity of women's sports just to say like, you're right, like we're learning too. Like
that's what we need to do.
Figure it out.
So you heard what was said there. Folks, there's a serious problem that exists in the United States. Speaking as an American who hasn't lived in the States for some years now, but will be returning next year, as someone that has been following the evolution of society in the United States over the last 3 to 5 years, I've noticed a plethora of disturbing trends. And one of them that I'm noticing is this new trend of essentially demonizing men. I've also noticed from afar that it is perfectly okay to scold men in public, trash them, and basically define how men should behave and act and think and speak. And everyone should be on board with it. Here's how I'm processing this entire situation here as it pertains to this audio. First of all, if you listen to how comfortable that female contributor was in terms of talking about men, it bothered me. Because number one, she was quite dismissive. Number two, she was painting with a broad brush, and this is something that Monica McNutt and others like a Carrie Champion were accusing Stephen A. Smith of. But they don't see it when they did it. The other thing I noticed was Stugotz and others who were then agreeing with her without any pushback. No one in that room had a varying opinion. No one. It's almost as if to say, whatever she says, we need to agree with it. That's a problem. It is a serious problem.